All right, welcome to today's adult education session. We are very fortunate to have an amazing member of the Claremont community who I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with and know his work at HartmanBaldwin. And also, Devon Hartman is the president and CEO of Chirp, which is a very important organization in our community that deals with education and community engagement around energy efficiency and renewable energy. And we know that that is an essential topic and something that is an important value of Claremont United Church of Christ, to think about sustainability and efficiency. And so we are excited to learn more about this great program that we can be a part of here in Claremont, and also just to think about bigger pictures around energy and sustainability. So just one reminder, if you're in the room with us today at the end during questions, it'd be great when you ask your questions, just come on forward to the computer screen. That way Devin can see your face and those on Zoom can see your face. If you're on Zoom, we're looking at you in this room because we've got you up on our screen. So,
okay, great.
Devin, take us away.
Oh, thank you, everybody. I'm really happy to be with you all. Love being able to just kind of pop in and out this way. Some of you I haven't seen in a long time, so it's wonderful to be with you this morning. What I'd like to do is give you an overview, cut down from a 4 or 5 hour presentation that we could go off on lots of tangents. But I'm going to give you the kind of the quick overview today, and a summary of kind of where we are at. As many of you know, we started Chirp about 12 years ago now, in conjunction with Sustainable Claremont, to focus on the power and benefits of energy efficiency. And we partnered with Pilgrim Place. We had all 350 residents vote to move forward on retrofitting from an energy efficiency perspective, the buildings at Pilgrim Place, and then we decided to move out into the rest of Claremont, and then we actually have been working around the state, doing energy efficiency work with Energy Upgrade California, in about 8 or 9 other cities up and down California. And then in 2015, I was fortunate enough, when I was giving a lecture down in San Juan Capistrano to the League of Women Voters and Sierra Club, once again on energy efficiency. And a man walks up to me at the end of my lecture and says, "We should talk." He had been working for 5 years on a technology for solar panels, and had been looking for a nonprofit organization to help him distribute that technology around the country, because he had decided at the bottom of the recession in 2010 that every one of his patents, he had 55 personal patents to his name at that point, and every one of them was being monetized overseas, because he had followed the normal route of selling the intellectual property to venture capitalists, and the venture capitalists would take that intellectual property to Asia to monetize using cheap labor. He decided that at the bottom of the recession in 2010 that he was partly responsible for that recession, because it doesn't do any good to take the intellectual property from our country that's being generated here and then take it to another country where it can be monetized because of cheap labor. So he made a vow to only now distribute his technologies throughout the United States, in the United States, through nonprofit organizations. So we've been working together now for the last 7 years, and we decided back in 2015 that a solar factory exploiting his technology would be the capstone project to the Chirp suite of initiatives starting with energy efficiency and education, and now moving on to renewable energy. So now after 7 years of work, we are now in the position of being able to start replicating this dream around the state and around the country. So we've created something called Chirp Solar Works. And the shortest definition of what we do is that we have now positioned ourselves to be able to build solar factories for other nonprofit organizations in disadvantaged communities across America. So our goal is not to own hundreds of factories across the country, but to have them individually owned by nonprofit organizations in the heart of communities that need the jobs and the economic expansion opportunities the most. So thank you very much. That's very wonderful. Nice to have a little feedback here. So we have a fourfold mission. The first, of course, is that we want to stop global warming. The second is that we want to bring back middle-class manufacturing jobs back to our shores. The third is to stimulate local economic expansion, because we all know that just creating a job doesn't necessarily create economic expansion. If we have a multinational corporation selling coffee, for example, in our town, it does create a job, but the profits from that endeavor leave our local community. And we're going to talk a little bit about the importance of generating economic activity and keeping those proceeds and profits circulating locally so that we can rebuild our cities from the ground up. And of course, our fourth mission is to halt environmental and economic injustice. We have learned over the last decade, and now it's firmly ensconced at the highest federal levels in some of Biden's initiatives right now called Justice and Equity, that in order to address our global warming issues, we also must at the same time address the issues of equity and justice. Otherwise, we will never accomplish our larger goals. We cannot leave behind the lowest 40 to 50% of our population as we try and move forward with new initiatives. So how are we going to accomplish these things? We have what we consider two very important strategic advantages in the marketplace. And we're going to talk about these today. Number one, we're going to deploy the most advanced solar technology in the world. I was very fortunate to meet Kent Kernahan, the inventor, that day, 7 years ago. And I've been doing due diligence on what he was telling me, because a lot of it I didn't understand, quite frankly. It has to do with physics and electrical engineering. And I have been convinced, and a number of the physicists and electrical engineers at Harvey Mudd have been convinced that this solar technology is in fact very exciting and will represent a sea change in the way photons are stripped off and delivered through solar panels. Number two, we're going to deploy this new technology in an enlightened nonprofit business model. So we're going to protect the intellectual property from being rolled up in a for-profit multinational organization. And we're going to distribute the opportunity and the economic opportunity to disadvantaged communities across the country who need it the most. And so what we have done now by combining these two things is we have now opened the first nonprofit solar panel assembly factory in the world in Pomona, California. And here's a photograph of the factory. We're very proud of the factory. We have taken over a 7,000 square foot old warehouse that used to be used for a Save-On drugstore. This is in the village at Indian Hill, the old Sears Mall, where one end there's the swap meet and the rest of it has a lot of Pomona School and other city buildings. And we've taken over this space for our manufacturing. And as you can see, we also have a lot of artwork. We have really focused heavily on local artists and developing organizational programming to be able to have the factory open to the community and have meaningful engagement with various sectors of the community, because we not only are focused on having a solar panel assembly factory, but we are also creating a workforce development factory where we are going to be focused on some of the at-risk populations in our communities in terms of veterans and homeless and prison release populations, youth, at-risk youth, to be able to come in and work with us for a while we train them and then move them back out into industry once they're trained and know how to hold down a job. So we are very serious about starting an American solar manufacturing renaissance right here in Pomona. We're combining world-class technology with a new business model so that we can bring back solar manufacturing. The solar cell invention started here in the United States. We used to make solar cells. We used to make solar glass. We used to make solar panels. We don't make any of that anymore. 94% of all solar panels being distributed in this country currently come from overseas. So we've decided that it's time to change that formula. And so one of the things we're going to talk about first is the technology, because it's our first strategic advantage. And we started 4 years ago with trials, what we call the field trials, because we were out on Lindy Field at Pomona, at Harvey Mudd, with a back-to-back trial. You see the conventional, these are the first tier Japanese panels here in front. And these are our panels here in the back. Exact same configuration, exact same location. And we wanted to start running trials to see how much better our technology was than the top tier conventional technology. One of the things that I want to kind of get across, this is a very exciting conversation, quite frankly. We could spend a couple hours just talking about the technology. But ever since 1941, when Russell Ohl developed the first silicon solar cell in the United States, there has been a fundamental problem in working with silicon solar cells. And that is that they tend to go into a condition called reverse bias. And that reverse bias condition can create tremendous hot spotting. A solar cell, if it's weaker than its neighbors, the neighbors tend to force their energy in operation through the weaker cell. So, for example, if you've ever taken apart a big flashlight and seen those batteries or those cells inside the flashlight, sometimes you'll take one out and it's all gooey and it's kind of exploded. That's the exact same principle that's going on in a solar panel, because you have cells in series. And if one of those batteries or one of those cells is weaker than the other cells in that flashlight, the other cells will force energy through in a reverse bias condition, and the excess energy that cannot flow through the cell gets dissipated as heat. and it actually gets dissipated as a lot of heat in a solar cell. So you can see a radical difference between these two pictures. Our solar panels are on the right. The conventional solar panels, all other solar panels in the world create reverse bias and hot spotting. And you can see in an infrared camera here at 241 degrees, this particular hotspot is the hottest spot on this panel, but there are other hotspots also approaching that temperature. You know, water boils at 212 degrees Fahrenheit. So this is already getting hot. Whereas in our panel over here, the hottest point is 144 degrees, which is much closer to the operating temperature of a solar panel when it's operating perfectly without hotspots. So this has been a problem plaguing the industry since 1941. You can see here a recent study where this particular panel on sample A is actually demonstrating 6 different hotspots, different hotspot conditions in different strings. This particular hotspot is approaching 301 degrees centigrade, which is over 500 degrees Fahrenheit. This hotspotting has caused the industry to work intensively toward mitigation of the worst effects of those hotspots. And so conventional solar panels have a number of strings. They have things called bypass diodes to be able to take the strings offline when they get too hot, and a number of complicated additional parts and architecture in the stringing of the panel in order to avoid the worst effects of hotspots. Well, Kent Kernahan's invention and intellectual property and the algorithms in the electronics actually do not mitigate hotspots. He has eliminated the problem. And so this problem that is plaguing the industry, you can see there are a number of companies now who have drones out flying over lots of commercial solar fields to monitor the hotspots, be able to take those panels away and replace them at a cost of billions of dollars of problems in the industry. Our panels have eliminated that problem. So this problem is actually very large. You can see here the photograph of solar panels that have actually burned themselves up and caught the building on fire underneath it. It turns out that 7 Walmart stores caught on fire due to the Trina solar panels that were placed on them by Tesla and Solar City. There's a lawsuit that was initiated last year between Walmart and Tesla. You can look it up, and the fires were caused by hotspotting. Turns out that it's very interesting. What's happening in silicon solar cells these days is that we're learning how to make them more and more efficient. And as a solar cell becomes more efficient, it can produce more energy. And so the hotspotting problem has become worse and more problematic because when a hotspot does occur, there is more energy to be forced through it. And so the heat becomes greater. So we've worked ourselves into a bit of a corner technologically with solar panels. And what you can see here on the upper left is the back sheet on a solar panel lamination stack that is burned out because of hot spotting. So we've got material failures that are increasing. And you can see here on the lower left-hand corner, a solar cell that has been discolored. And this is actually the plastics that encapsulate the solar cell that is discoloring and causing degradation in the amount of energy that the solar panel can produce. And at 500 degrees Fahrenheit, we'll also see the actual soldering inside the solar cell become degraded. So that problem has been solved. And in our tests at Harvey Mudd College, between the two different arrays, we now, because of the solving of the problem of heat in solar panels, are now unleashed in terms of the efficiency of solar cells. So we have far less degradation. And as you can see here on this histogram on the right, we have far more energy production from the same amount of solar cells. So this has been a real breakthrough and very exciting for us to be able to start working with this technology. And some of you may know Professor Dick Haskell or Peter Saita from Harvey Mudd, two physicists that have been working with us now for the last 4.5 years. They have just now, this month, completed their white paper that has now been turned into a journal article for the IEEE Journal of Photovoltaics that will be published later this month, on the idea that this is the first time in history that hotspotting has been eliminated from solar panels. So they've been working with this technology now for the last 4.5 years, and we're all very excited that this will be the first paper talking about elimination of these problems. So welcome to our factory. This is a factory where we have combined the best of world-class robotics and high-tech manufacturing techniques, along with the idea of creating spots for actual humans to work in the factory. The factories that I've been in China and in Mexico, basically the goal has been to create a $1 billion, million square foot, fully automated, lights out factory where humans are unnecessary and we have full automation. Our goal was to combine in an artful way the use of appropriate technology and robotics with maximum use of human beings as well, because the goal here is to create an opportunity where we can have meaningful employment and train people to come through the factory and then move up and out into industry, so that we're creating a workforce development factory as well. One of the things I'd like to talk about now is the second strategic advantage that we have, and that's our enlightened nonprofit business model. This is extremely important. And I want to take with you the kind of the macro view of economics, because this is a very important part of our mission. And we can use energy as the metaphor for a lot of other goods and services. We have combined the leadership from Claremont and Pomona with the goal of demonstrating that it's important that we have regional collaboration when we're attacking outsized problems such as global warming or economic expansion or economic or environmental justice issues. We think it's really important that we gather together. We have cities rallying together to attack some of these outsized problems. And so from an economic perspective, let's just reflect on the idea that if anyone in Pomona or Claremont wanted to purchase a solar system, that all of the money for that solar system will leave the city. And with regard to solar panels, it not only, that capital expenditure not only leaves the city, but it leaves the state and it leaves the country, because 94% of all the panels that are coming into the country come from overseas. So we have an economic leakage right at the beginning of trying to move forward with renewable energy problems. So one of the things we're trying to do is not just make solar panels, but we're trying to address a number of issues, as you remember, our fourfold goal. And so what we'd like to do is encourage cities to think like a system and act like an entrepreneur. And that is to create, what we'd like to do is kind of encourage everyone to think about creating a little bit of negative pressure so that we can attract investment into our local communities and minimize the leakage. So let me walk through with you very quickly what the kind of the economic model here is and what we're facing in our communities all the way across the country, from California, from cities like Pomona to West Virginia, where coal mining is collapsing, to the Rust Belt in Ohio, to disadvantaged communities in Texas and rural areas in Colorado. We're in conversation with cities all over the country right now. But this is exactly what has happened everywhere, and we're just going to take Pomona as an example. Pomona used to be a very thriving economic center with lots of local corporations, businesses, and manufacturing. But a lot of those left. And so we have not a very big manufacturing core, and we've got a lot of non-local corporations that have moved in. And so anchor institutions such as hospitals and universities and other major businesses are forced to purchase goods and services from outside the community. So there's more capital leaving the community. Municipal government is the same way. And so now let's also think about energy. Let's think about those tens of thousands of households in Pomona that are spending $90 to $100 a month every single month on energy. And so we have quantified 6,000 households. Our first goal for the factory is to serve 6,000 low-income households to serve our economic and environmental injustice mission. We figure that if we could provide solar for 6,000 households, that would save them all a minimum of $90 a month, which is $6.5 million a year. So for every 6,000 households, and this is at the lowest household income level, because at the higher household income levels, it's more than that. It's more than $90 a month. $6.5 million a year per every 6,000 households in Pomona are leaving the community to the utilities to be burned up every month. So we've decided to take a look at the macroeconomic level and try and change that picture in whatever way that we can. So right now we're going to try and reverse the flow of dollars from out of the community back into the community. How are we going to do that? We're going to, first of all, start talking with the municipal governments and get everybody on city council and other organizations involved, along with the Chamber of Commerce, all of our anchor institutions, to have them engaged with the opportunities that we might want to create, and to start also asking for support and donations. And then we're also going to be working with the community in general to generate donations. And so we have now launched a Chirp solar factory. But along with the solar factory, we bring our friends and other strategic partnerships that we're generating across the country. Things like greenhouses. We're also in partnership with Homeboy Industries, another very well-known social enterprise that has lots of businesses that they could open inside communities to create jobs and to address our at-risk populations. So if we can stimulate new business activity, then we can start providing opportunities to purchase goods and services from our anchor institutions right inside our own community. We can hire people who work inside of our community, creating jobs. And then we can produce product right inside our own community for our community. So we have neighbors making solar panels for neighbors, closing the loop once again on how the best economic model works for a particular unit and city. So this is how it really works. Right now, we've got 6,000 households spending $6.5 million a year outside of the community for energy. So we went to the state and the county and our cities and raised money. The state gave us $2.1 million to create the first locally grown power factory in Pomona. By summer, we will be producing panels after we've been certified by UL Laboratories. Then once we start making solar panels for households, it'll be like flipping a switch. We can take those dollars that will not be leaving the community anymore, and they will be reinvested back into the local community because of something called the marginal propensity to consume. At the lowest household income level, these families have never been able to satisfy their essential spending needs in order to keep their families moving forward. So in other words, the marginal propensity to consume at the lowest household income level is a much higher multiplier than it is at the high household income level. If a high household income family saves $90 a month on energy, that money tends to get saved or invested outside the community. It gets saved in a multinational bank or it gets invested in the stock market. At the lowest household income level, those dollars, those extra dollars tend to get spent locally and immediately on essential spending needs such as food and clothing and school supplies and gasoline and rent and the things that are necessary to live from paycheck to paycheck. So we can redistribute that $6.5 million a year back into the local retail economy, which spins up indirect jobs, even beyond the factory jobs, helps the environment. And what it does is it sets off something called the virtuous economic cycle, which is what we're trying to stimulate, because that virtuous economic cycle then is a cycle that reinvests dollars over and over in the local community. And what that does is it spins up sales tax. And that sales tax then generates income at the state and the county and the federal level. At the state level, that sales tax will end up paying for the initial investment of the factory in under 5 years and double their money in under 10. So let's talk about how this works from a contractual perspective. In order for a business to, like the school district, let's say, or a municipal building, to purchase energy, they need to hire an outside company to come in and design and build and finance that solar system. A school district is a nonprofit business, and so a school district doesn't have the excess capital or the ability or a tax appetite to take advantage of investment tax credits or depreciation. So they'll hire a for-profit company from out of town that can come in and build a solar system. Well, let me show you just from that power purchase agreement contract what the net effect is in the local economy when that happens. So we start off with a local economy, which is a bucket we want to fill. And if we hire an out-of-town company and we don't have a local factory to produce our own panels, then the dollars that we need to spend, or the school district needs to spend, leaves the community. If we don't have a factory that's creating jobs, that's creating the panels, the money from those jobs also leaves the community because we don't have them. The installation oftentimes is brought in by the out-of-town community. So for example, the Pomona School District right now is engaging with a company from Delaware to stand up a solar system for 4 of its buildings. The installation will come from out of town, so we don't participate in installation revenue. Operations and maintenance will come from Delaware, so that leaves the community. The profits generated ongoing for the next 20 years from this contract will also leave the community. There will be no low-income household programs because that out-of-town company is a nonprofit, is not a nonprofit. It's for profit. So there will be no benefits gained from solar for low-income households. Now, the district will save some money. And there will be also no local investors. But in our model, when we can locate every single piece of this value chain inside the local economy, then the value and the proceeds get recirculated inside our own local economic sphere, and it will fill up our local economy. So we have the choice now. We're trying to create an opportunity here that an opportunity cost can be avoided and create an economic multiplier. We've done the analysis, and the RIMS2, the regional input output analysis, shows that this is a 7 times multiplier effect for every dollar spent on a project this robust. It will create a 7 times economic GDP expansion over 15 years, which is really what we're trying to do and model this kind of economic behavior so that we can start rebuilding our so-called disadvantaged communities from the ground up. So this is really the way it works. Chirp will help communities build their own locally grown power solar factory that's vertically integrated, can make panels, it can sign contracts, and it can do the installation. It will create solar systems for municipal school districts and other nonprofit large organizations such as universities. But in order to do that, this is where we have a beautiful blend of nonprofit and for-profit businesses. We will work with what's called a third-party ownership organization that actually has a tax appetite because it's a for-profit investor-owned company that needs to invest in things that create investment tax credits and depreciation. So they will fund the payment to create the solar system. We can create the solar system internally inside our own city that creates low-cost energy for the municipal buildings and the school districts. And in that sale, there's a lot of profit. So part of that profit can go back to pay the TPO back their share so that they can make a profit. And then the rest of the profits, if we were an out-of-town company, the rest of the profits would leave our community. But in our case, we're going to reinvest those profits back inside the community in terms of creating community solar projects that generate energy for our lowest household income families to create that extra disposable personal income for those families in our communities so they can spend that money locally. So in our opinion, focusing on environmental and economic injustice is not just a moral issue. It's one of the largest economic levers that we can pull to reinvigorate our local economy. So this is what we're doing. We're starting an American solar manufacturing renaissance right here in Los Angeles, California. We have a nonprofit Chirp Solar Works factory, a building organization now, and we are going to create the locally grown power nonprofit factory network across the country. So we're starting in California, and we now are in conversation with 15 other cities around the country, which has become very exciting, meeting extraordinary people from all over the country who really are excited about our mission. We're going to network those communities into a nonprofit solar manufacturing network. And that network is designed to focus on things like equity and justice first, rather than trickle-down economics, which we know does not work. We have 250,000 people living under bridges in California alone. So we know that the billions of dollars and trillions of dollars of economic activity that have been focused at the very top of our demographics is not trickling down. We need a focus, an economic focus that's regenerative, not extractive. We need to focus on local benefit, not global at this point. And this whole network will be focused on mutual aid rather than competition. So Chirp will then help coordinate and communicate with all of these nodes around the country. So here are the numbers. One prototype factory in Pomona, after we've met our phase 1 goal of supplying energy for our municipal buildings and 6,000 households, is that we will be mitigating an extraordinary amount of carbon every single year. 26,700 metric tons of carbon is the equivalent of getting in our car and driving around the world 2,300 times every year. We can create over 700 direct and indirect jobs. We'll stimulate the local economy, and we will address the needs of 6,000 low to middle income householders in our communities. And then, of course, our goal is to start replicating across the country, and then the numbers become a little bit staggering at that point. Even 10 factories will create over 7,000 jobs. So let me give you a quick idea of what this looks like for the County of Los Angeles. We want to start right here at home in LA. County of Los Angeles has set some extraordinary sustainability goals. It's claimed to be the most aggressive county sustainability plan in the country. Goal 7A in this sustainability plan is that we want to distribute 10 gigawatts of new distributed energy resources by 2045. This is a great auspicious and audacious goal. The problem with that is that in order to do this, we're going to need to purchase 30 million new solar panels at a cost of over $3 billion, which will mean those $3 billion will leave not only the LA economy, but the California economy. So our solution is now, let's focus on the opportunity and the opportunity of an economic expansion, multiplier of 7, and create 13 locally grown power solar factories producing 100,000 panels per year and creating over 10,000 jobs. And if we start recirculating that $3 billion in our local LA economy, that will add $21 billion to the local economy over the next 15 years because of those multiplier effects. So that's our vision. We intend to change the way solar is made and distributed in the United States. And we now have the first prototype factory built. We're in process of doing internal testing and getting ready to submit it probably within the next 3 weeks to UL for certification. And we'll be making panels by this summer. So the factory is now open. We welcome all of you to come down at some point and take a tour. We're very excited to be in partnership with the cities of Pomona and Claremont to launch this endeavor. And I'm just super excited to have shared this with you today. And we're always looking for help, for volunteers, for helping engage with us, to help us get to the next level, which is the replication phase, because we've now proven the prototype. And we're now ready to replicate across LA and the country. So we welcome your participation and your ongoing support. And I'll stop talking now and entertain questions.
Let's see, can you see me? Can you see me or hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay, my question is, what is this all, is the Pomona project, is that dependent on having 6,000 homes to do that? What is the 6,000? Tell me what.
Okay, that's great. It's a little confusing, I think. We've just in order to quantify opportunities and benefits, we just arbitrarily chose 6,000 households as our first goal. And so once we stand up the factory, the goal was to cast the vision that we've created an opportunity that we can supply energy for our municipal buildings, our universities, our school buildings with a local resource. And then the goal is we sell energy to those large institutions, and the profits that we gain from the sale of energy to those institutions, then we turn and we create community solar projects, and we give the energy for free to our lowest household income families. And so we just arbitrarily chose a number 6,000 because we'd like to go way beyond that. But if we supply 6,000 households, then we can save another $6.5 million a year that's leaving the economy and funnel that back into the local economy. So basically, it was just a way to quantify the phases and the benefits of this local opportunity.
I have a question.
Yes.
How is Edison and the pushback from Edison happening because of their concern that more solar means a heavier burden on low-income families throughout their area for maintaining the grid, and then the cost that the PUC is considering, the tax or the fare or the toll that they're considering putting on households with solar? How does that affect all of this?
It does affect it. It affects the distribution of solar in the state of California, and people from all over the country. A lot of us in California are working to fight against that new legislation, that new NEM legislation. Mm-hmm. It's a false premise that solar inadvertently hurts low-income families. Our national policy up to this point has disadvantaged, this is where it's true, has disadvantaged low-income families because our federal policy is income tax based. And so the only people that can really take advantage of solar distribution right now are people with a tax appetite. And so our lowest household income families can never afford solar with the way it's being distributed right now economically, because they don't have taxes to get credit from, right? So that is true, and that we are fighting against. But the fact that it's costing more for the grid, disadvantaged, we've already advantaged the highest household income families with tax benefits. That's why they're taking advantage of solar, and low income households are not. So it has nothing to do with extra grid demand. We have, in our particular case, we're going to go around all of that, because what the newest legislation is affecting rooftop solar. We're going to be working with the CCA organization, both in Pomona and in Claremont, to stand up community solar projects that can distribute the energy directly toward low-income household meters. So we can go around the rooftop problem at the beginning.
And the California Public Utilities Commission consideration on this tax?
Sorry, I'm having a hard time hearing.
Yeah, it's some sound.
So I'm sorry, say that again.
Oh, I was mentioning the California Public Utilities Commission is debating whether to impose a tax on
That's
the.
exactly right. That's exactly right. They're trying to figure that out right now. There's a lot of pushback. We've already been successful in getting them to push that back already, and we're just hoping that that they don't make that mistake. We figured that that's a very serious and grave mistake, and will hurt solar in the state of California.
Could I ask one quick question? How can we become part of a tour?
Oh, okay. Well, contact us in our offices, and we will help you organize a tour. That would be really fun.
You don't have any like regular ones that happen, so we'd organize a group to do it.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, sign off, right? I guess so. I'm thinking we should sign off. I think we need to head into church.
Okay.
This has been wonderful. I'm so excited about what you're doing.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you all for your time to listen. I'm really excited to be with you all. And it'd be fun if you could organize, and we'll figure out a time to get you into the factory to poke around and see what we're doing.
That would be great. Thank you so much for your presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Happy Sunday.
Devon. Very inspiring.
Happy Sunday.
Happy Sunday.
Take care.
You too.